.co.uk today and get 50% off your first box. Subscription auto-renews, cancel anytime.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We move into the final hour of trading. We've got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all declining right now, with the S&P lower by 3 points, down by about 0.1%. Bottom line, stocks are fluctuating near records. Treasuries rose after the latest jobs report delivered mixed signals about the strength of the economy. We've got the 10-year up 8/32, yield now 1.82%. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 87 points. Right now, the Dow is at 28,869. It is down 0.3%. It did trade briefly above the 29,000 level. S&P down 3, down 0.1%, and NASDAQ down 5, a drop there of just about 0.1%. So the S&P 500 index has been swinging between gains and losses after hiring data this morning fell short of estimates, and wage growth was the weakest in more than a year. Mohamed El-Arian is chief economic advisor at Allianz, the parent company of PIMCO. He's also a Bloomberg opinion columnist.
My bottom line is that this does not in any way change any expectations about economic prospects or Fed policy. We are now where we were before the employment report in terms of those expectations.
And we will have more on the jobs number as well as the Fed reaction coming up in just a moment. Unemployment, by the way, holding steady at a half-century low of 3.5%. Non-farm payrolls rose by just 145,000 jobs, below 2019's average. Boeing's largest supplier to the grounded 737 MAX is laying off 2,800 employees, potentially complicating the future of the playmaker's best-selling jetliner. Spirit AeroSystems Holdings says the job cuts are needed to reduce costs as Boeing prepares to halt output of the MAX indefinitely. We've got Boeing shares down today by 1.6%, Spirit shares down 2.9%, and to clarify, that is Spirit AeroSystems Holdings. So again, recapping, stocks lower, S&P down 5, a drop now of 0.2%. The Dow down 0.4, NASDAQ down by 0.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
It is time to talk a little bit about the economic scene. Of course, this was a big report, got that number earlier today, and Jason and I have been talking about how investors seem to be kind of shrugging it off. Earlier guests saying maybe a little bit of Goldilocks, something for everybody in it. Alex Harris is with us to make some sense of it, bond reporter at Bloomberg News, along with Yelena Shaletyeva, our senior U.S. economist at Bloomberg Economics, both in our Interactive Brokers studio. I do want to start with you, Yelena, first of all. So what do we need to know about this report?
So it was a little bit of a miss relative to consensus.
You guys were more upbeat.
We were more optimistic because of retail sector and construction sector, which actually came quite strong. So construction was strong because of milder weather, and retail sector really added a lot of jobs, 40K, I think. And that was a result of an aberration in seasonal adjustment because Thanksgiving holiday was very late in the year, so a lot of this hiring related to holidays actually was crammed into December. So that was the reason we expected a strong number.
What'd you miss?
We missed on two very major contributors to employment, such as healthcare, and another one is business services. So these are the two main engines of jobs growth, and they came very well below the recent trend, which I think will reverse next month. So this is something unusual. There's no reason for that to slow down that much. So I think it's just a month of just a statistical aberration. So, which tells me that the headline number was probably less important than something else that was quite negative in the report, and that was a slowdown in momentum in income creation.
Right.
So that was quite substantial. So if you compare it to the beginning of the year, it was a major slowdown. So that, having said that, it's, it is definitely worth watching, but it doesn't mean that, growth will slow down to such a significant degree that it will be a disaster. We still expect
All right,
this to
Harris.
Does the bond market agree with Yelena Shaletyeva that it's maybe only a one-time
I think
kind
the
of
bond
blip?
market was really annoyed that they had to wake up for this, what they would probably call a meaningless jobs report. And then they went back to talking
Hold on a second. I'm just imagining the bond market is this grumpy, slightly over middle-aged man, getting up and being like, "Damn it, I got up for this. Where's my coffee?"
That is exactly how I characterize most of the people in the bond market, anyways. So yeah, that's pretty good. It was looking at the wage growth component, the headline numbers, because at the end of the day, what everyone in the bond market is looking at is, does this change the Fed's outlook in any way? Does this change the number of rate cuts that are really priced in, or anything that the Fed might do this year in terms of interest rate moves? And it doesn't. And Fed funds futures were really steady after the data had come out. And this doesn't change a thing. And so now, you have the 10-year still sitting around 180. It's been stuck in this range since the end of October, beginning of November. And so now everyone's asking the question, what is going to get us out of this? Or are we just destined to sort of, is the 10-year destined to sit sort of in this purgatorial level, between 170 and 2%? What's really going to move the needle here? And that's what everyone's now looking to.
Totally agree with Alex. Status quo on Fed hikes, cuts, whatever. So this report definitely supports the view that they will not change that much. So there's no need to.
All right. So we've got about 20 days, or I think 19 days, until we get the next Fed meeting. We've got to wait to get some more out of them. So what else on the economic front are you finding interesting right now? Then
we have a bunch of economic data coming out next week. So starting a lot of sentiment indicators, which will tell us whether this trade deal, phase one deal, is having any impact on business sentiment. Remember that business sentiment was one of the big things last year when we're talking about it depressing business investment. So will it pick up? We'll probably see some signs next week. Retail sales coming out. So that is going to be an interesting report, because that will tell us how the holiday season was. Was it good? Was it not so good? We think it was kind of tepid this year. So we'll find out about that. Industrial production numbers will come out, and that will be indicative of how the manufacturing sector is doing. And remember, the latest ISM report suggested that it's not doing really well despite this phase one trade deal. And we also received another confirmation of this in this payrolls report today, that manufacturing sector is not doing well.
I think it's interesting that what you said about retail sales, because weren't we all kind of all over the end of December about Amazon saying record holiday retail sales? So how do I reconcile that?
This will be offset by poor performance by traditional retailers.
Okay.
So all in all, November was weak, but December was strong. So all in all, it will be a decent year, but probably not a great one.
What are you most worried about going into next week?
Well, the interesting thing to Elena's point about retail sales, depending on, given what we saw with the wage data and the payrolls report, how do you reconcile this? Like, does this does a retail sales number give us confirmation one way or give us any more insight into the state of the consumer, which has really been carrying the growth? I mean, they've been the story, that we've talked about here, in terms of what's driving growth in the United States. So that is going to be worth watching here. And then I think, more importantly, I know the Fed's not meeting till the end of the month, but repo operation schedule is to be released on Tuesday, and everybody is now talking about this because now they're trying to understand, okay, they sort of hinted at this in the minutes for December, like they could gradually sort of roll back these repo operations. Well, now everyone's saying, well, what does gradually mean? How are they going to go about doing this? How are they going to start slowly pulling this liquidity out of the market? And are they really done? Or is this going to be like what Rich Clarida said yesterday, and that they could probably be doing some of this through April?
Right.
So that's what we're going to be looking at.
Watch that space for sure. All right, Alex Harris. Big sigh there from Trail Master. Alex Harris, bond reporter for Bloomberg. Elena Shalecheva, senior U.S. economist for Bloomberg Economics. Happy weekend to you both. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about jobs from the perspective of someone whose job it used to be to worry about these things. He still worries about it quite a bit, analyzes it for us. Chris Liu, senior fellow down at UVA, former Obama administration official.
And he's been really gracious. He's going to spend some time with us. So we're going to broaden out the conversation because there's so many issues certainly coming out when it comes to the labor market and more broadly policy out of Washington. All right, right now back to World and National News headlines and Mr. Bob Moon.
Carol, the U.S. will levy significant economic sanctions against Iran in response to the Middle Eastern nation's missile strikes on U.S. military facilities in Iraq. Iran's industries will suffer crippling penalties, and so will 8 high-ranking officials. These sanctions will also apply to corporations or nations engaging in commerce with Iran, but Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said today exceptions will be made for those participating in the investigation of a Ukrainian jetliner crash near Tehran.
The Treasury will issue waivers for anybody, whether it's Americans or others, that can help facilitate the investigation.
The U.S. is promising to take appropriate action in response to its assessment that an Iranian missile was responsible for downing that Ukrainian jetliner. The acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, called a news conference in Yuma, Arizona today to promote border wall construction. Wolf blasted the fact-checking of President Trump when he calls rebuilt border wall new wall, while conceding the new sections just erected are indeed replacing old wall. He insisted it's more accurate to call it new.
When someone builds a new, modern, smart, 5-bedroom house in place of a dilapidated, rundown shack, you do not call that a replacement house. You call it a new house.
Wolf asserted his border agents overwhelmingly support a border wall system. Virginia lawmakers have voted to ban firearms at the state capitol. Some GOP lawmakers routinely carry guns into the Virginia Capitol building, and Republicans have voiced opposition to the ban. Newly empowered Democrats in the General Assembly there say the move was needed to protect public safety. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
You can't be the only one who spends time examining angles,
This sort of mini deal, what would it look like?
considering possibilities,
From the credit perspective, this is good news.
planning for eventualities.
This company really has to get back on a growth track.
You're right. The others are here.
General Electric is such an interesting story.
Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Martin here loves being his own boss, but staying on top of all the tax rules used to drive him up the stud wall. This 31st of January self-assessment deadline, however, Martin won't be hitting the roof, just a few buttons. He's using QuickBooks Self-Employed to make sure his tax bill is all above board. It tracks income and expenses, so he always knows what he owes. You could say he smashed it.
Visit quickbooks.co.uk for details. Intuit QuickBooks.
Imagine yourself in an unspoiled paradise, discovering the charms of a new city, or sampling street food with the locals. Fly from London to more than 160 destinations worldwide and make 2020 a year like never before with Qatar Airways, named world's best airline by Skytrax. Our incredible selection of special fares are available now. Book today at QatarAirways.com. Qatar Airways, going places together.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three, it's up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Hear every play of the NFL playoffs live with the NFL on TuneIn Premium. The divisional round kicks off Saturday at 4:35 p.m. Eastern when the Vikings travel across country to take on the 49ers in an NFC showdown in Santa Clara. The action continues at 8:15 as the Ravens host the Tennessee Titans in Baltimore. On Sunday, listen live beginning at 3:05 Eastern as the Texans and Chiefs square off in Kansas City, followed by the Seahawks and Packers at 6:40 in Green Bay. The excitement of the NFL playoffs is on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raj, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
their money, track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all trading lower. Let's head right over to the First Word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here he is, Bailey Lipschultz.
Good afternoon, Charlie. As you said, stocks are back in the red after the latest jobs report delivered mixed signals. The Dow is down 110 points, S&P off by 7, with the NASDAQ lower by 20 points. U.S. 10-year yield is at 1.82%. Small caps are down 5 points. 8 of the 11 main S&P sectors are trading lower, led by losses in industrials, financials, while real estate led to the upside. NASDAQ Biotechs rose after Eli Lilly agreed to buy Dermira for over $1 billion. Transport slipped 20 points. Semis dropped by 12, while the VIX is little changed. Leaders in the Dow, Pfizer, Coca-Cola, and United Health, while Boeing, Travelers, and United Technologies were the worst performers. Boeing fell after documents showed workers had concerns about its 737 MAX. Grubhub after saying it isn't running a sales process, and Intuitive Surgical hit a record after procedure growth and robot sales beat estimates. Wrapping things up, online mattress retailer Casper Sleep filed for an IPO. Live from the First Word Breaking News Desk, I'm Bailey Lipschultz. Charlie?
All right, I thank you very much, Bailey. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg-type squawk, SQUAWK on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you so much, Charlie. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massler along with Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the big story of the day, the thread that we are pulling throughout this episode of Bloomberg Business Week. It's Jobs Day, but what does it mean going forward for the economy? We're going to talk about trade. We're going to talk about a lot more with Chris Liu. Delighted to have him back with us, senior fellow down at the University of Virginia Miller Center. He's also, of course, former Deputy Secretary of Labor under President Obama. He joins us on the phone from Charlottesville, Virginia. Seville, they call it down that way. Chris, great to have you with us.
Always fun to be on.
All right, so break this down for us, because I feel like the market certainly reacted with the technical term I think is meh, and basically it's like sort of moved on to whatever they were thinking about for the weekend, maybe the NFL playoffs or something. But what do you make of it? You understand these numbers from many different perspectives. What's your takeaway?
Look, it's always good not to read too much into one jobs report, and I think there was probably a little too much enthusiasm after the November report, which I think was 266,000. So this month, I think when you average the two together, that probably gives you kind of a better sense of where the jobs, where jobs are in this country. I think it's fair to say this was disappointing, and I think it's fair to say that when you look at 2019 compared to 2018, the jobs clearly are slowing down. And I think what concerns me is when I start to look into some of the different sectors. Manufacturing is down, and I think that is emblematic of the manufacturing recession we're having here and probably around the world. I was also kind of struck by the retail number. Retail was up 41,000, and I don't think, you all know this better than I do, I don't think most people think the retail sector is particularly strong. So
not crushing it right now.
While while that's a positive number, it sort of stands out as an anomaly, and it sort of is head-scratching and makes you wonder, can you really sustain that? And, when I look at, whether it's Pier 1, Walgreens, Macy's, closing stores. Going forward, it's slowing. It's not slowing as much as I think some people thought earlier in the year. And, at this point in an economic expansion, 145,000 jobs is pretty good.
So, okay. What's interesting, Chris, is when I think about the expansion, here we are, 10, 11 years and counting. I do wonder, though, could we continue to kind of move along with this kind of job creation? Because I do feel like we've had strong months, and then we've had some months where there's some weakness, and we begin to wonder, okay, wait, this isn't where we should be at this game, at this point in the cycle. I don't know. What can you kind of glean from this about what it tells us kind of longer term about maybe what's next for the U.S. economy and the U.S. labor market?
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting things. Wages were actually sort of disappointing as well. Right. That was, I think, 2.9%. And I think most people thought that was going to be higher. And I think most people think, again, when we sort of think generally about how labor markets work, that when you're at 3.5% unemployment for a sustained period of time, wages would be higher. So that's kind of head-scratching. And then also when you look at labor force participation, which seems sort of stuck at 63%, what that says to me is that you're really not taking people off the sidelines who haven't been working. So when you put all that together, it's hard to sort of see how much longer this economic expansion, which is, historically long, how much longer it can be sustained. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to go into a recession, but we may just kind of be at middling job growth for the next year or so.
All right. So, Chris, as we look ahead to next week, big Chinese delegation coming to Washington, just up the road from you. What do you make of this latest sort of iteration or latest step in the trade war? How important is it versus symbolic?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's symbolic in the sense that we've sort of put a ceasefire or temporary ceasefire in terms of escalating. That's probably not unlike what's happening in Iran right now. But it doesn't really solve a lot of the fundamental problems and disputes that the two countries have. It seems like most of the really difficult issues on, for instance, intellectual property protection or access to Chinese markets have essentially been pushed down the road. It's also sort of, nobody can quite get a sense of, the president says China's going to purchase, 40 billion, 50 billion of U.S. farm products. Most people think that's not really possible, and curiously, the Chinese haven't really committed to that one way or another. So, look, the trade war isn't escalating, but it doesn't seem like we've resolved the underlying disputes.
Right.
I'm just thinking, I'm in the White House, and what are you thinking? Just got about 40 seconds, then we're going to bring you back here. Though, you've got the trade situation, obviously, and this is going to be a big focal point next week. Jobs, though, ultimately, you want to make sure, especially within a re-election coming up, right, that the economy continues to grow. Jobs at what level is necessary, to kind of make yourself feel comfortable about re-election? Just kind of quickly, Chris, if you could.
About 100,000 is what you need to keep the unemployment rate from going up. But I'm not sure if we got 100,000, that would be enough for the president politically. That's not what he wants more than that.
Right. All right. Chris Lu, stick around. We're going to be coming back to you down at the University of Virginia Miller Center. Chris Lu, former Deputy Secretary of Labor under President Obama. When we come back, we're going to talk to Chris about the rest of the political situation. He's worked in the White House, and as Carol was alluding to, how you sort of feather all these things together. He also wrote a book about Congress, helped edit a book about Congress. I want to ask him about
great perspective.
That perspective
like having Chris
as
on.
well. Stick with us. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Carol Masser also streaming live on YouTube. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week here on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are lower in the final hour. The government's disappointing December jobs report took the wind out of the market sales. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 117. The S&P 500 down 7. The Nasdaq Composite is down 20. Job creation slowed as 2019 drew to a close. The Labor Department says employers added just 145,000 jobs in December, falling short of expectations. The unemployment rate held steady. Pink slips are going out at Boeing supplier Spirit AeroSystems. The Wichita, Kansas company is laying off about 2,800 people. Spirit makes the fuselage and other parts for Boeing's grounded 737 MAX. Google parent Alphabet says its top lawyer, David Drummond, is leaving at the end of the month amid accusations of having inappropriate relationships with employees. A regulatory filing by Alphabet gave no reason for his departure. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
The Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast.
How did the Yankees become this mega valuable team?
Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
From the marketing perspective, where are the dollars spent?
From union heads to team owners, Scott Soshnick and Michael Barr speak to the names that power this multi-billion-dollar industry.
Boston Red Sox CEO Sam Kennedy.
National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Bloomberg Business of Sports. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Imagine yourself in an unspoiled paradise, discovering the charms of a new city, or sampling street food with the locals. Fly from London to more than 160 destinations worldwide and make 2020 a year like never before with Qatar Airways, named world's best airline by Skytrax. Our incredible selection of special fares are available now. Book today at QatarAirways.com. Qatar Airways, going places together.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Down the middle of the 10, got to the 5, tumbles in, touchdown.
TuneIn has your NFL playoffs live all weekend. So when you're running to the store or stuck in traffic, TuneIn has you covered.
Puts his head down, crashes and spins and dives. Touchdown!
Search NFL and get prepared for the action.
Touchdown! Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in. Touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Coming up, we are going to continue our conversation with Chris Liu, former Deputy Secretary of Labor under President Obama, also co-editor of the book Triumphs and Tragedies of the Modern Congress. We want to talk about a bunch of stuff with him. Before we get to that, let's get to Charlie Pellet. He's got an update on the trade. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there, Jason Kelly, and we are looking at a down day for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ. 28 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell on this Friday. What a week it has been. First full trading week of the brand new year. Right now, we've got the S&P trading lower by 8 points. That's a decline right now of just about 0.3%, while the Dow is down 119 points, a decline there of 0.4%, and NASDAQ down 25, a drop there of just about 0.3%. So the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all declining. Stocks falling from near records. Treasuries rose after the latest jobs report delivered mixed signals on the strength of the U.S. economy. Anastasia Amoroso is global investment strategist at J.P. Morgan Chase.
Wage growth maybe is a little bit slower than what the expectations are, but it's still right around 3%, which is where we've been. And then there's job creation that is happening broadly. So I take that as a positive sign. I think manufacturing economy is bottoming, so you're starting to see that a little bit.
Indeed, wage growth was the weakest in more than a year. We will have more on the jobs report coming up in just a moment, right here on Bloomberg Business Week. The online mattress retailer Casper Sleep has filed for an initial public offering, reporting growing revenue and losses amid heightened competition from imitators. 10-year of 10/30 seconds yield now 1.81%. Gold up 0.5%, 15.60 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.9, 59.03 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It is indeed. Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. Still with us is Chris Liu, former Deputy Secretary of Labor under the Obama administration, now a senior fellow at the University of Virginia Miller Center, on the phone from Charlottesville, Virginia. And Chris, you wrote a book that is called Triumphs and Tragedies of the Modern Presidency, co-wrote it.
Modern Congress.
Oh, did I say it wrong?
Yes, the modern Congress.
Oh, yes.
And we could, yeah, exactly.
Sorry, forgive me, Kivy. Okay, I was looking at something else. But I do wonder about when you think about the modern Congress and how lawmakers work together specifically to kind of shape policy, think about our role, not just in the United States, but also abroad. And I do think about how do we get Congress back together, both sides of the aisle, to think about our position, not just here at home, but really abroad, which is important when there's so many issues out there that affect us all.
Yeah. Wow, that's a big question that I'm not sure we could answer in the time you have. I think bipartisanship really is at a scarcity right now, and it's unfortunate because it's not just our leadership around the world, but it's trying to tackle difficult issues at home, whether it's infrastructure, immigration, climate change, and we haven't had the most productive last year in terms of bipartisanship, and I don't really expect much going forward, given that we're in an election year. So I think we're basically at gridlock here in Congress, and look, that's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, you've got states and cities who are taking action on lots of issues, and at the next point in which we have kind of a strong majority in both houses of Congress that the same party as the president, you'll probably see kind of a spurt of action, and then we'll kind of go back into gridlock again for a while.
Well, and I guess to that point, Chris, I mean, is this, having studied the history, is this just a cycle that we have to go through? Because, of course, everybody in every generation says this time it's different. But I do wonder about your perspective, especially having the, I dare say, sort of luxury now, to sort of be at a place where you can think about these things. You're talking to students about it. You're talking to your colleagues. What do you make of that?
Well, my former White House colleague Larry Summers wrote a piece a couple of years ago where he basically argued that if you look at the history of, recent politics, it's basically gridlock. And you'll have brief periods of time when, one party controls the presidency and Congress, and then a lot of stuff happens. You can go back to the late 60s and the Great Society. To some extent, you could sort of look at the Reagan Revolution, although he didn't control the House. The first couple of years of the Obama administration, maybe the first year of the Trump administration. And his view is, that at some level is sort of depressing. On the other level, it's sort of as it should be. You kind of need a big supermajority of people who want change in one direction in order for Congress to move. And essentially status quo is, not the worst thing in the world. I think where I disagree with Larry is that basically works for a lot of issues in this country. But when you look at big sort of structural problems like climate change, I don't think we can afford to kind of punt that one down the road until we get a one party in control anymore. And, even something like infrastructure, I mean, it doesn't take much to drive around this country or go to airports to see that we really need to make an investment. And you would think that would be sort of the least offensive issue right now, and yet we still can't seem to get that done.
It was so funny as you were saying climate change. I was writing climate change, and I was then going to go on to like kind of inequalities that we have here that just seem to get worse and worse. And I do think about the power vacuums that are being created, Chris, globally, and is that stuff? I don't know. You understand. You've worked in all three branches of the government. I mean, how quickly can things maybe change under a different administration, under new lawmakers? How quickly can that happen?
Well, I think they can. I mean, I think, during the period of time when I served for President Obama, you saw those first 2 years, 2009, 2010, it's not only an $800 billion stimulus, it's Dodd-Frank, it's the Affordable Care Act. You can do big things, but then you'll essentially have the next 6 years of the Obama administration where the action tends to be much more incremental. It goes through regulatory change. And the unfortunate part with changing regulations is that those can be undone by a next administration, as we're finding out. So, but I think it speaks to sort of broader problems in our country right now where the American people can't really understand long-term risks like climate change. And I think nor can they sort of understand, America's place in the world and how all these things fit together. And, sadly, the 24/7 news cycle doesn't necessarily lend itself to kind of thoughtful discussions of these issues either.
Right. All right. About 45 seconds left. Give us a note of optimism, maybe, that you're drawing from students you work with, colleagues down there at University of Virginia.
What I've seen is on both sides of the aisle this incredible level of citizen engagement. Mm-hmm. I think people understand finally now that elections matter, and it's one of the reasons why in the last couple of elections you see such high voter participation, and that's a good thing.
Right. All right. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much. Chris Liu, Senior Fellow at the University of Virginia Miller Center. He's a former Deputy Secretary of Labor under President Obama. We should mention his aforementioned colleague, Larry Summers, former U.S. Treasury Secretary.
With David Weston this night.
He is a featured player on the Reboot, the new and improved Bloomberg version of Wall Street Week, debuting tonight, as you say, 6 p.m. tonight with David Weston.
And I just want to remind everybody, Chris Liu's book, Triumphs and Tragedies of the Modern Congress. Forgive me, I misread something. Case Studies in Legislative Leadership. But I do think it's a great way to kind of understand how lawmakers can work together and get things done.
And I do think today we maybe underestimate or underappreciate the history and the importance of the Congress. Candidly,
yes.
These co-equal branches of government gets lost sometimes in the shuffle.
All right, let's get back to World and National News headlines. Let's head on over to Bob Moon. He's in our 1130 newsroom. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Carol. Discussing a classified mission on condition they remain anonymous, U.S. officials say there was an attempt at taking out another senior Iranian commander on the same day that an American airstrike killed the Revolutionary Guard's top general. The officials say a military airstrike targeted Abdul Reza Shalai, a high-ranking commander in Iran's Islamic Republican Guard Corps, but the mission was not successful. President Trump, meantime, under intense pressure to explain the urgency of killing General Qasem Soleimani, was pressed by Fox News commentator Laura Ingraham to reveal more about the impending threat.
Don't the American people have a right to know what specifically was targeted without revealing methods and sources?
Well, I don't think so, but we will tell you that probably it was going to be the embassy in Baghdad.
The president went on to say the general was plotting attacks on other embassies as well. As he put it, I can reveal that I believe it would have been 4 embassies. Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the House will prepare to send articles of impeachment against President Trump to the Senate next week. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports.
The Speaker has stated her intentions in a letter to Democratic members, which was confirmed on the House floor by Majority Leader Steny Hoyer.
The letter has been sent. I do expect legislation to be considered next week to proceed with the process, and I hope the process proceeds in a fair way that allows all of the evidence having the President of the United States removed for abuse of power.
The Democrats will discuss their next steps when they caucus next Tuesday morning, after which Senate Republicans will have their way. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us number 1 in client support, number 1 in firm leadership, number 1 in operational support, number 1 in compensation, number 1 in professional development support, and number 1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Bombshell is nominated for 3 BAFTAs, including Charlize Theron for Best Actress and Margot Robbie for Best Supporting Actress. Oh, yeah. It's the most important film of the year. 5 stars. You'll be gripped from start to finish. Charlize Theron, Nicole Kidman, and Margot Robbie are phenomenal. I think it's time we finish this. Bombshell, in cinemas January 17, Cert 15.
Imagine yourself in an unspoiled paradise, discovering the charms of a new city, or sampling street food with the locals. Fly from London to more than 160 destinations worldwide and make 2020 a year like never before with Qatar Airways, named world's best airline by Skytrax. Our incredible selection of special fares are available now. Book today at QatarAirways.com. Qatar Airways, going places together.
Down the middle of the 10, got to the 5, tumbles in, touchdown.
TuneIn has your NFL playoffs live all weekend. So when you're running to the store or stuck in traffic, TuneIn has you covered.
Puts his head down, crashes and spins, and dives. Touchdown!
Search NFL and get prepared for the action.
Touchdown!
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep 3 is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are
the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raj, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right. Use it. To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Moments ago, we had lows of the session for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, down roughly 150 right now. Very slight recovery, looking at a loss of 134 points on the Dow, down by 0.4%. We've got the S&P down 9, a decline there of 0.3. NASDAQ slumping 27, also down by 0.3%. So U.S. stocks are falling from near records. Treasuries rose after the latest jobs report delivered mixed signals on the strength of the economy. The 10-year right now is up 10.30 seconds, yield 1.81%. S&P down 9, down 0.3. The Dow down 135, down 0.5. NASDAQ lower by 0.3. Gold is moving higher, up 0.5%, $15.60 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.9, $59.04 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no.
Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
It is time for the Drive to the Close. Back with us is JJ Kinahan. He's Chief Market Strategist at TD Ameritrade. Firm has $1.3 trillion in assets under management. They are based in Chicago. JJ on the road and joining us from New Orleans on this Friday. Hey, nice to have you here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Carol. Great to be with you guys as always. How are you?
I'm doing okay. So what are you hearing from your clients? It was quite a first full week here in 2020 in terms of the news flow, but markets seem to take most of it in stride, even hitting some records here. What, if anything, has changed in terms of market sentiment and market thoughts?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. One of the things when we had the news to start the week was don't change your thesis based on one or two things. Let's see how the market plays out. What's interesting to
it's
me,
not though, JJ, can I just jump in? It's not just one or two things. I mean, these were big things. We're talking about missiles, we're talking about Iran, we're talking about, there's things and then there's...
I agree, but they were big things, but it faded rather quickly. That said, I don't know that, as you know, these things tend to repeat themselves, so I'm not saying it's necessarily all done and nobody should worry anymore, but in the short term, looking at bonds, looking at VIX, looking at, gold, it looks like people have at least put that fear aside for now. With that said, one of the interesting things I thought was I look at our clients' behavior at in December, And heading into the new year, the most interesting thing is in the month of December is the most exposure to the market our clients took all year long. Still historically not a really high level because, for 2019, there was the tariff fear and other fears hanging over things, so people were super aggressive. But as the market hit new highs, people started to not only buy more equities, they bought more ETFs, they bought more fixed income. They basically bought more of everything. But I do find it quite a conundrum, so to speak, when they're buying fixed income and equities at the same time.
All right, so JJ, as we look ahead next week, earnings, it's all happening. Yeah. The big banks are out of the gate first. What do you like when you look at the, sort of those big financial names? We're going to hear from JPM and Goldman, I believe.
Yes, and actually, that's an area I think for 2020 can be a very nice place to be. And the reason I think that on these big banks is because they've had every headwind in the world, and yet they continue to fight them off. They've become amazing at trimming expenses, maximizing profits where they can. And that's in a, terrible, let's face it, it's been a terrible environment interest rate wise. So we're in an environment now where it looks like at the very least they may get a stable environment. If we can continue to see the numbers coming in a positive way, I know today's employment report was maybe a little disappointing, but overall the trend is that the numbers have been pretty good. It can at least keep the interest rate risk away, and maybe who knows at the end of the year if we even start having a conversation about higher rates. So I do think that if the CEOs can tell us that they see a pretty good year coming along, and most importantly, the PE ratio, as I know you guys talk about a lot, has been sort of the criticism of the market right now. Well, if we can start to get these earnings going a little bit so that sort of the E catches the P, if you will, we could continue to have a decent rally.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So where would you put some new money at this point, JJ?
Well, I do think, for those who are a little bit more conservative, you may want to wait until you see some of the financials come out and see what they say. But I think if you have a time frame where you say, okay, for 2020, what's one area of the market I do want to sort of focus on, I think there is opportunity in the big banks.
All right, talk to me about retail, because we talk so much about some of the names. I mean, Carol and I spent a lot of time, in part because we're, for different reasons, a little bit obsessed with it. Bed Bath & Beyond, that was a tough beat, to say the least.
You chuckle, right? I mean, it's an interesting one.
But it's a fascinating sort of window in. What do you make of the world of retail right now?
I think as, particularly as a retail investor, it's the area you have to be the most careful of. Not because I think that it's not a good space, or not because I don't think the customer is doing well, because I do think the consumer is doing very well. The problem is exactly what you just talked about. It's more than any other sector, in my opinion. It is individual name driven. Yeah. You see them on, you talk Bed Bath & Beyond, you talk about Kohl's with some warnings, JCPenney. When you see a healthy consumer, you're thinking, a company like Kohl's should be a net beneficiary of this overall. So again, I feel that this area overall, like I said, big banks, so that is cast kind of a wider net. When you say retail on something like this, you have to be so careful, because it is the ultimate in the winners and losers, in my opinion, sector.
JJ, you did say the big banks, which are just getting ready to report all of their earnings results. Would you be buying ahead of the results in anticipation that they're going to show us some pretty strong numbers for the last quarter of the year?
Well, as I say, I think it kind of depends on your risk tolerance a little bit. And what I mean by that is, if you're somebody who's willing to take a little more risk, sure. But if you're someone who, is a little bit more, I need to see something first, you can wait the 2 weeks where you'll see most of the big banks. You may miss a little bit of the move, and I think one of the mistakes people make, Carol, and that's such a good question, because one of the mistakes I see people make is they don't know what their own time frame is when they go in to invest. Mm-hmm. If your time frame is for the end of the year, you don't, as my father used to say, you don't have to be the first one to the party or the last one at the party. So, you can wait a little bit. It really depends on your risk tolerance and your time frame for, if you're just playing for earnings, which may not be the smartest. That's a tough game. Sure, you have to do it now, but I don't think that's what most people are going for.
All right. Speaking of parties, just in the minute we have left, JJ, talk to us about Apple. What a run that stock had last year, but didn't start out so well, as you recall. How do you feel about that name now?
So I'll tell you something interesting on that name. It's still the number one held name at our firm by our retail clients. They were sellers of Apple 9 of 12 months last year.
No kidding.
So to me, that's very interesting, because one of the things it does show is that people weren't afraid to take profits there. And I think as much as any other stock, the worry about tariffs was reflected synthetically through Apple. So it's interesting, and it actually makes me happy, because people are, oh, people missed the move. I say, no, still the number one held stock. So people were taking off some risk on the way up to find different opportunities. And I just find that a really interesting behavior out of retail. I don't think that would have existed 5 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Buying and selling. The stock was up 86% this year. Remember Gene Munster saying about a year ago,
be the best performing thing.
Yeah, and he was right. So fascinating.
JJ Kenahan, great to catch up with you, Chief Market Strategist for TD Ameritrade, based in Chicago, joining us from New Orleans. Eat a beignet, drink a hurricane for us while you're down there. Really love catching up with him. He's always got some good... The trolley? Really? That's what you do when you go to New Orleans?
I did.
All right. Oh, Carol.
And some other things.
And some other stuff.
So into some cool places. All right, stick around. We've got the closing bell, and we'll look at movers and shakers right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Business is like a puzzle. Can you make a call given this swirl of data? Get all the pieces.
They're getting mixed signals from governments.
He's failed to gain traction.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. As the rich get richer and the number of firms looking to...
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium, from regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade. Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Down the middle of the 10, got to the 5, tumbles in, touchdown!
TuneIn has your NFL playoffs live all weekend. So when you're running to the store or stuck in traffic, TuneIn has you covered.
He's taking contact, and he kicks it in! Touchdown!
Puts his head down, crashes and spins, and dives. Touchdown!
Search NFL and get prepared for the action.
Touchdown!
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pelota. Down Friday, but it was a winning week for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ. Folks from Eli Lilly ringing that closing bell. Stocks retreating from records. Treasuries rose after the latest jobs report delivered mixed signals about the strength of the U.S. economy. The economy adding just 145,000 jobs in December, less than Wall Street forecasts and below the full-year average. Wage growth also moderated last month, but the unemployment rate still running at a half-century low of 3.5%. A move lower, though, for the equity market today, with the S&P 500 index dropping 9 points to end the week and head into the weekend at 3265, a drop of 0.3%. The Dow down 133 points, lower by 0.4%, while NASDAQ slumped 24 points at down 0.3%. NASDAQ ending the week at 9178. And should mention, too, that briefly the Dow Jones Industrial Average did trade this morning above 29,000. Big bank earnings will be front Center this coming week. J.J. Kinahan is Chief Market Strategist at TD Ameritrade. He was our guest moments ago right here on Bloomberg Business Week.
That's an area I think for 2020 can be a very nice place to be. And the reason I think that on these big banks is because they've had every headwind in the world, and yet they continue to fight them off. They've become amazing at trimming expenses, maximizing profits where they can.
The 10-year up 10/30 seconds yield 1.81%. And among the banks reporting next week, J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, and Wells Fargo. Yes, Bloomberg Radio will be all over those earnings reports as they break. The online mattress retailer Casper Sleep has filed for an initial public offering. Share sales being led by Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and Jefferies Financial. Again, recapping, stocks lower, gold up 0.5%, S&P down 0.3%, to end the week at 32.65. The Dow down 0.5, NASDAQ down 0.3. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Move around. Motion creates emotion.
I feel the earth move under my feet.
You move like they do. I've never seen anyone move that fast.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
It's called Movers and Shakers. They cost a little more, but that name cracked me up.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers with Carol Messer and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, a lot to get to, and to wrap up the trading week, of course, Charlie breaking down the numbers of the major equity averages. We did finish near our lows of the session. As for the split on the S&P 500, 190 names higher today, 313 lower, 2 unchanged. So certainly more of a bearish tone to the trade. For the week overall, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.2%, S&P 500 up 0.9%, NASDAQ easily the outperformer, Jason, up almost 2%, up 1.75% to be exact. So some gains for the week overall.
Yeah, interesting to see that sort of move toward the downside as the trade went on today, because it really was a very sort of even day for a lot of it, not what we typically expect on a jobs day, because we usually see a move one way or the other, that people are either excited about something or a little bit more bearish. So ending the day and the week a little bit bearish, although, as you say, overall, and I go back to something we said at the top of the show, I don't think if you had said, hey, Monday morning, by the way, all major indices are going up by the end of the week for the week, you would have thought we were insane.
I think we all thought the markets were going to fall apart. So it was interesting to see that not happen. And it really had to do with lack of escalation on the parts of the United States, our allies, and Iran when it came to that situation. Hey, let's get to some names that were certainly on the move. I do want to talk about Six Flags. That stock, is SIX. So let's bring it up, because we did see that name just down. Is that? No, if that's not right, I didn't get it right. Hang on a second. The stock was down about 18%. So really plunging to a 5-year low. The stock's worst loss ever. This is after warning that some of the troubles with its planned China-themed parks will apparently hurt revenue, and that could lead to all of the projects being canceled. That's a big deal. They've got a Chinese development partner, Riverside Investment, and this is the quote, continues to face severe challenges due to the macroeconomic environment and the declining real estate market in China, and has defaulted on required payments to Six Flags. Riverside did not respond to a request for comment. So the partner, it sounds like, having some problems there. Right.
Taking another look at Grubhub. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show with Leanna Baker over on our deals team. You know, interesting to see the action around that stock yesterday on the report that it could be for sale. Actually, 2 days ago, the stock was up almost 13% yesterday. It closed up about 2% today. The company coming out and officially saying, even after they had told Bloomberg the same thing, that it's unequivocally not for sale. Now, everybody's for sale. Let's be honest. This is the world we're living in.
Right price, right deal.
Absolutely. So you wonder what may be going on there. So that is certainly one we're looking at. Let's take a quick look at volatility.
Okay, let's do that. The volatility index report on this Friday. Let's bring it up. The VIX on the Bloomberg terminal. It's showing us that the VIX
up a touch. 0.4%, closing at 12.59. This is Bloomberg. Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door. It's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey, Mr. Wilson. Dave Wilson here with us, a double shot. Let's start with your chart of the day.
All right, let's do. You know, Carol, you were just saying a few moments ago about the idea of markets falling apart. That might come in handy for a lot of investors that have sort of missed the rally the last few years, especially last year when you saw the S&P 500 go up 29%. The real question is whether the market is going to be accommodative, and history suggests that's a toss-up. You know, I saw this data in a report from Keith Lerner at SunTrust Private Wealth Management, and what struck me is he looked at election years to see what was the biggest decline from top to bottom at any point during the election year. It's what they call a drawdown. And when you run through the numbers going back to 1948, so basically after World War II, you find out that, you know, declines of 10% or more, you know, the common definition of a correction, only occurred half the time during those years. So, you know, if you're waiting for some big drop in stocks to be able to get in and buy, the market may not accommodate you, which is really the point. If you want to know more, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
So while you're waiting, you're kind of missing the continued momentum to the upside. It just gets more and more expensive ultimately, right, is what happens. Hey, talk to us a little bit about your stock of the day, TPTX.
Turning Point Therapeutics. It's a cancer drug developer. The company's focusing on targeted therapies that would block cancer cells from growing, especially in patients who have failed to respond to treatment. Turning Point was founded in 2013 by Jean Cui, who developed the cancer drugs Alcoria at Pfizer, and her husband, Peter Lee. The company raised $166 million in an initial public offering last April, and yes, that ticker TPTX. Turning Point did its IPO at $18 a share. The stock rose about 61% on the first day of trading and kept climbing after that. Just yesterday, it traded a record $67.54. It's a long way up from 18 for sure. The Turning Point slump today after the company disclosed that it will step down as chief scientific officer at the end of this month. She's also giving up a board seat. Now, the company said in a statement that she's leaving for unspecified family reasons. It's worth noting, though, her husband left last year and became CEO of another cancer therapy developer called Nikang Therapeutics in November. Now, Chui's imminent departure sent Turning Point shares to their biggest loss since the IPO. They fell just a bit more than 13% today.
Interesting. A lot of drama, sounds like.
Yeah, there is. Now, they hired someone as a chief medical officer who started in December, so maybe he'll step in. We'll see. But, you know, a lot of change.
Yeah, a lot, to be sure. Have a great weekend, Dave Wilson. Let's head over to Bob Moon now. He's in New York with our world and national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, U.S. investigators will join Ukrainians, Canadians, and other international experts probing the crash of a Ukrainian jetliner in Iran. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Washington.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was asked if there would be an American response if the investigation concludes that the Boeing 737 was fired on.
We do believe that it's likely that that plane was shot down by an Iranian missile. We're going to let the investigation play out before we make a final determination. It's important that we get to the bottom of it. And when we get the results of that investigation, I am confident we and the world will take appropriate actions in response.
Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, who announced additional sanctions on Iran, said the sanctions would not stand in the way of sending American air crash investigators to Iran. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Iraq's caretaker prime minister asked Washington to work out a roadmap for an American troop withdrawal. But the U.S. State Department bluntly rejected the request today, saying the two sides should instead talk about how to recommit to their partnership. Thousands of anti-government protesters turned out in the capital in southern Iraq, many calling on both Iran and America to leave Iraq, reflecting their anger and frustration over the two rivals, both allies of Baghdad, trading blows on Iraqi soil. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said today the House will take steps next week to send articles of impeachment to the Senate, ending her delay of President Trump's trial. In a letter to her Democratic colleagues, Pelosi said she was proud of their courage and patriotism and warned that senators now have a choice to be, in her words, loyal to the president or the Constitution. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
In the real world, there are no rabbits in hats, crystal balls, or cards that turn into money. Instead, you get business information from top-tier analysts and experts.
What should expectations be for this latest round of negotiations?
That's actually better, isn't it?
They're both trying to say they have the upper hand.
Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Open calendar. What's my schedule looking like?
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an emergency flash flood between Park and First Street.
What? No, that doesn't work. I'm busy then. Decline. Decline.
Floods don't exactly work around your schedule. Disasters don't plan ahead. But you can. It starts with talking to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. So don't wait. Communicate. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now, there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
From dancing through the streets to the pulsing heartbeat in Brazil, to heading out on a safari in South Africa, or exploring the cultural delights of China. Wherever in the world you want to be, you can get there from your doorstep with KLM Royal Dutch Airlines. Book your dream deal at klm.com by January 21st and fly via Amsterdam from a choice of 16 UK airports. Make your dream a reality with KLM.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, has Silicon Valley changed since all the revelations about the world's social media companies?
I think people are really reluctant to relinquish this narrative of being underdogs, of being innovators, of just trying to experiment and make the world better.
Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
Pointer by Anthony Davis. That's good!
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss. Two of the top teams in the Western Conference go head-to-head. This Sunday, the Clippers are at the Nuggets. Tip-off is at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Three ball on the way. He got it to go!
Three from the angle. Got it! Search NBA to follow your favorite NBA team today.
Hear every play of the NFL playoffs live with the NFL on TuneIn Premium. The divisional round kicks off Saturday at 4:35 p.m. Eastern when the Vikings travel cross country to take on the 49ers in an NFC showdown in Santa Clara. The action continues at 8:15 as the Ravens host the Tennessee Titans in Baltimore. On Sunday, listen live beginning at 3:05 Eastern as the Texans and Chiefs square off in Kansas City, followed by the Seahawks and Packers at 6:40 in Green Bay. The excitement of the NFL playoffs is on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
On the goal line, scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
A move, and a shot, they score!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Jobs Friday, down day for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ. It was, however, a winning week for all three, but today the S&P 500 index declined by 9 points, down 0.3%, 3265. The Dow down 133 points, down 0.5, and the NASDAQ Composite Index was down 24 points, lower by 0.3%. Latest jobs report delivering mixed signals on the strength of the economy. The dollar declined versus major currencies. The 10-year was up 10/32, yield 1.81%. Gold up 0.6%, 15.60 the ounce. Crude oil finishing the week below $60 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate 59.17 a barrel, down 0.7. Brent at 65.10, lower today by 0.4%. Again, recapping losing day for U.S. equities with the S&P down 9, a drop of 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Get yourself a job. Sha-na-na, sha-na-na-na-na.
All right, so we've been looking at the jobs picture from a number of angles. Excited to talk about it with our next guest. She's back with us, Becky Frankwitz, president of Manpower Group North America, joining us on the phone from Chicago. Becky, Happy New Year. Great to have you back with us.
Happy New Year, Jason. Thank you.
All right. So break this down for us from the perspective of someone, you're talking to CEOs all the time. It's a pretty good gig for workers right now, huh?
In fact, I would say that 2020 is shaping up to be the year of the American worker. I mean, today's jobs report showed that the U.S. labor market finished 2019 on solid footing. And yes, it is a declining rate of growth, but make no mistake, it's still growth. 111 months of consecutive job growth and our longest economic expansion on record. So we think 2020 is the year of the American worker.
Okay, but why do I know people who are either out of work or looking for full-time work? I mean, it still feels like there's some disconnect within the data points versus the reality of the labor force.
Yeah, so Carol, I'd say the disconnect, if there, and there are pockets of disconnect, it's really driven by skills, the haves and have-nots. And that's why, one of the biggest pieces of advice we're given to CEOs today is to change the dialogue around upskilling to action. We have to action upskilling. So people who are out of work are either, looking for something that they're not qualified for and they have to upskill for it, or they're not finding their match. And so we have to help connect workers to jobs. Our economic growth depends on it.
And so are companies having to do new and different things? Because I have to say, Becky, I've been a little bit obsessed. Carol has been rightly giving me a little bit of a hard time about Taco Bell.
Well, no, but I think it's a big story.
The $100,000 manager, what are we to make of moves like that? And is that just a good sign, or does that signal something more fundamentally changing?
Yeah, so, you touch on a couple of things. First, I'd say, what we're telling CEOs is they have to rethink their own expectations for roles. And that includes what you're talking about, which is wages. It includes location. The fastest growing non-wage benefit is remote working, fastest growing non-wage benefit. So letting people work where they want to work. And it also means that we have to rethink what's required for a job versus what's desired for a job. Almost 90% of IT jobs in our country require an IT degree, and yet 40% have them. And so we're starting to see employers, relax what they had as required and really thinking about what's desired. And we have to do more of that.
All right. So in terms of the educational system that's out there, what's lacking in kind of getting us from A to B here?
Yeah, it's about a time horizon. The idea that education and income are two mutually exclusive, events. That is what, probably the three of us all grew up with. That is an old idea. Today's idea is you earn while you learn, you earn on the job, and that we think about not the skills that you have, but the adjacent skills that you may bring to a job that you've never done before. So what you can do in the future has less to do than the jobs you've had in the past and much more to do with your capabilities. And we have to start thinking of human beings as talent. We have talent, and what can this talent do for us? And it's not defined by their degree that they got or by the last, 2 jobs they had.
Well, and, in this era of the gig economy and all of those different things, we are thinking about work, I hope, in a much more humane way. You would like to think that maybe this could signal some changes, and you talk about things even down to, defining the workday, the work week, right?
So the other thing we talk to CEOs about is challenge the traditional definition of a workday, because employees are challenging that definition. So it's a skilled workers market, and people want to consume work the way they consume in the rest of their lives. So think about, Amazon Prime, much like online shopping, you get to choose when you work, where you work, how you work, and that's why, our data is showing that the fastest growing non-wage benefit is remote working. Employees want to call the shots, and the lack of supply and the increase of demand gives them that opportunity.
All right. So, Becky, just to be slightly cynical here, is this just a moment in time where maybe some things change for a bit, but if the labor market does loosen up a little bit and there's sort of less fervor around this, do we sort of revert back, or do you think there are some fundamental changes underneath this?
Well, Jason, I would totally agree with the hypothesis, except that our country reached a century low in population growth at the end of 2019, a 100-year low. And so even if the labor market lessens up a bit, which that would benefit a lot of people, even if that happens, we still do not have the incoming population to support the growth we need in the future. So I continue to see this idea that, the power has shifted to employee versus employer playing out in our future.
I also, though, wonder, if there's not enough workers, if you want to grow the economy, there's a couple ways to do it. It's either increase productivity or increase the size of the workforce. And if we don't do it, we're kind of stuck here.
Totally agree. So the idea of bringing more and more people in off the sidelines, it's a critical piece. And Carol, you talked about knowing people that are looking for work or out of work. Employers have to work to understand what is it going to take. Wages continue to defy logic. We haven't seen overall wage growth. Now we are seeing wage growth in high demand skills like STEM, but we're not seeing overall wage growth. And the argument is because we're not seeing productivity increase. But the true argument is human beings will drive economic growth for our country, and we have to bring more into the workforce.
All right, great stuff. Good work that you're doing out there. Becky Frankowitz, president of Manpower Group North America, giving us a really nice holistic view, I feel like, of this new sort of empowered worker out there. And clearly she knows what she's talking about, given what they do for a living.
Except what's interesting is I feel like I have a lot of conversations of people that don't feel empowered as a worker.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fascinating to hear her.
Maybe they should be trying to work at Taco Bell.
$100,000, general manager, and all the tacos you can eat. I'm in. Are you in, Jason Kelly?
You know I love tacos.
You are so in. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on in terms of sanctions on Iran and how it's affected the market.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. A disappointing December jobs report sent stocks to a modest loss. The Dow Jones Industrial Average tumbled 133. The S&P 500 fell 9. The Nasdaq Composite dropped 25. The Labor Department said employers added just 145,000 jobs last month, falling short of expectations. Wage growth slowed. The unemployment rate held steady. Analysts say the report is a sign that the labor market may have peaked. GM is bringing back the Hummer. The Wall Street Journal reports it'll put the name on an all-new electric pickup. The automaker has enlisted LeBron James to promote Hummer's return, including a plan to air a commercial during the Super Bowl. Amazon is warning customers about a potential security risk involving Honey. The web browser extension helps online shoppers find the lowest prices. It was acquired by PayPal last year. Honey says its service is not a risk. At least one analyst agrees. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council. The market's in focus every business day. The P&L Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
What's behind this engine of gains?
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
The U.S. market looks relatively safe.
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
Ward McCarthy joins us right now.
P&L with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
I spy with my little eye something beginning with P.
People.
No, parrot.
I'll have to remember my binoculars next time.
Although you might not be able to see it, your small actions can have a real impact with Shell. Every time you fill up and use Shell Go Plus, you'll be protecting and replanting forests around the world. Make the change. Drive carbon neutral. Shell. Go well. See goplus.shell.com/CO2 for details.
Harry Bikers here. This message goes out to something very special.
Yes, we're talking to you, chicken.
Maybe we've been seeing too much of each other.
But times have changed, Dave.
We've been cheating on meat.
Thing is, no stocks make veggie dishes so irresistible that cheating on meat is proper tasty.
Our dear chicken, you were the fire in my life, but it's all about you now, aubergine katsu curry. Prepare to be wined and dined, my love.
Cheat on meat with no veggie stocks.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
Pointer by Anthony Davis. It's good!
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss. Two of the top teams in the Western Conference go head-to-head. This Sunday, the Clippers are at the Nuggets. Tip-off is at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Three ball on the way. He got it to go!
Three from the angle. Got it!
Search NBA to follow your favorite NBA team today.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today. Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown. touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Broker Studio in New York, Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Master along with Jason Kelly. So interesting week, I think, in many ways. Most of us come Monday thought it was going to go one way, and then here we are at the end of the week. And, you know, we actually have some gains in equities, but we want to really look at cross assets and take a look at kind of what's happened for the week overall.
Absolutely. We're going to get into that with Kriti Gupta in just a minute. But first, back to Charlie Pellet. He's got an update on the trade. What's going on?
Well, let's recap what happened this week. Yes, it turned out to be a winning week for both the Dow and the S&P 500 index, NASDAQ as well. On the week, we saw the S&P advance by 0.9% this week. The Dow was up by 0.7%. Friday, though, losing session with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all declining. S&P dropping for the first time in 3 days after hiring data fell short of estimates and wage growth was the weakest in more than a year. S&P lower today by 9 points, ending the week at 3265, down 0.3%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 133 points, down 0.5%. NASDAQ down 24. For NASDAQ, that was a drop of 0.3%. 10-year up 10.30 seconds, the yield 1.81%. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow says the U.S. and China are set to sign and unveil details of the Phase 1 trade agreement on Wednesday. Kudlow was interviewed right here on Bloomberg Television and Radio.
The fact remains that the production workers and the service workers' gains in wages continue to outstrip the gains of their managers. With the stock market rally, the gains in net worth, we've had fabulous household net worth increases, around $10-12 trillion in recent years. Half of those gains have gone to people at the bottom 50%.
Again, recapping, stocks lower. Gold did advance today, up 0.6%, $15.60 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.8%, $59.08 a barrel. S&P lower by 9, a drop today of 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks a lot. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week and watching live on YouTube. This is Bloomberg.
These are the days when anything goes.
That means some Sheryl Crow. Every day is certainly a winding road. Every week is a winding road. Now, the Trump administration, of course, some of the news we got today, imposing some new sanctions on Iran today. That includes some penalties on the Islamic Republic's metals and some senior leaders following Tehran's attack on U.S. military bases. So a lot continuing to go on when it comes to the U.S. and dealing with the Middle East. Let's talk a little bit about market reaction when it comes to cross assets. Bloomberg Markets Live reporter Kriti Gupta is here. She's joining us in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. So let's start with oil. I know you like to watch a bunch of different assets here, but talk about oil. I think that's the market we first looked to when we started to see increased tensions over this past week with the Middle East. How did we play out?
That's right. That's the knee-jerk reaction. And right on those headlines, you saw Brent hit $70 a barrel. And that was something that a lot of oil and gas producers were really watching. Saudi Aramco was certainly excited about that in a non-grim way. But shooting for that $2 trillion target on their Saudi Aramco stocks. That was good news for the stock because it pushed oil up to $70. But then, since then, when we got the all-clear sign that there were no American casualties, oil coming back not just to its pre-Iran strikes, but also back to down to the levels, or at least approaching the levels to before the Saudi surprise cut we saw back in December, and that was another big boost for oil back in the fourth quarter. So it's really interesting to see that oil is kind of back to where we saw it maybe a few months ago.
So take us, as they say, beyond oil and talk about the rest of the markets, because obviously geopolitics play across just about everything these days, certainly, and the intricacies and interconnectedness of all the different asset classes. It's partially why we have a cross-asset team, I would imagine. So what else are you seeing out there?
So debt is something I really have my eye on, especially those energy producers. Such a distressed sector energy is. And oil is a big part of that. Oil's been under pressure with all those trade tensions. And in the fourth quarter, we saw oil kind of liven up. We saw a little bit of life breathe back into that sector. And then we saw oil keep going, that sector kind of staying stagnant and then really taking off on that Iran escalation and towards the end of the year where we saw those risk assets rally. Now, what's really crucial about this Iran escalation and then de-escalation is that even though we have oil back down, it's been a real blessing for these distressed oil companies because they have been issuing debt a lot this week and really bringing some funds back onto their balance sheet, which they weren't able to do for a good chunk of it last year.
Right. I think we were worried about the credit picture, right, in terms of the energy sector. So it sounds like some of the nervousness about that has eased, and we're actually seeing new debt issuance, right?
That's right, and it's bringing some of those investors back to the table, which is really good news for them, for American oil companies in particular, because that's been such a distressed sector, and because we were kind of on the brink of bankruptcy and arguably still are. But this oil escalation, this kind of ongoing geopolitical risk in the Middle East, is bringing some issuers, some lenders back to the table for these companies, and that's why you're seeing these producers take advantage of, this geopolitical situation.
And so, take us to the desk here at Bloomberg, here at Bloomberg News. Did people look across this week and say, all right, this is pretty much how we expected it to go? Because I can tell you it's not how I expected it to go in terms of the broad market reaction. And I don't think, we've said this a couple times over the course of this program, that we thought that we would end up in this broad sense on the markets, up for the week. What's the perspective from our colleagues here?
Well, I think when we started the year, there was a lot of concerns that we're going to pare back some of the gains that we saw in 2019 because we hit a record year. There are those worries about the expansion being a very large expansion. So we were worried back in January, which has been traditionally the weakest month for stocks, to start to see some pullback. And that really hasn't happened yet. That being said, we're only 10 days into the new year, so a little early to say. But so far, yesterday, the S&P, the Dow, and the NASDAQ all hit record highs. So that kind of already tells you that there is a lot of risk appetite in the market. Bringing it back to this energy conversation, this is a fairly distressed sector. And these are CCC rated companies, and you're still seeing them get some attraction here.
Creedy, just have about 30 seconds left here. What's going to be most important in terms of the energy space specifically? What are you going to watch for? Is it economic momentum? Is it Middle East tensions? What is it that will be most important in terms of that specific asset class? Just quickly.
Oh, oil for sure is going to be the big driver of this. But geopolitical risk and those trade tensions on January 15th kind of getting soothed over is the big takeaway.
Just want to hit a headline. Creedy Gupta, thank you so much. Markets Live reporter for Bloomberg on our cross-asset team. A quick headline crossing the Bloomberg right now. Boeing disclosing that ex-CEO Dennis Muilenburg received no severance. That is an interesting move, and I dare say a very 2020 headline when we see so much more scrutiny, Carol, on executive behavior, executive compensation, and severance.
I got to say, I want to know a little bit more. I want to know if there were, options still out there or whatever, but I do think we talk about accountability, and I think this is an environment where people are pushing for more and more. All right, you are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Let's get a check on world and national news headlines. Back to Bob Moon we go. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Carol. In the crash of that Ukrainian jetliner in Iran this week, the U.S. is promising to take appropriate action, even before Ukraine itself has made any decisions on the matter. That country's foreign minister, Vadim Prystaik, speaking in Kiev, says Ukraine wants to wait until it has clear answers.
we will come to our conclusions. We don't want to come to them right now.
Western leaders say the plane appeared to have been unintentionally hit by an Iranian surface-to-air missile. Iran denies that. The crash followed the launching of ballistic missiles on 2 American bases in Iraq in retaliation for the U.S. killing of its top general in a drone strike. And as for the justification for taking out the Revolutionary Guard's top general, President Trump first today told Fox News that Qasem Soleimani was plotting to blow up, as he put it, probably the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Then, pressed by commentator Laura Ingraham, he went further to say other U.S. outposts were involved.
Do they have large-scale attacks planned for other embassies? And if those were planned, why can't we reveal that to the American people? Wouldn't that help your case?
I can reveal that I believe it would have been 4 embassies.
He did not name the other embassies. The White House is considering dramatically expanding its much-litigated travel ban to additional countries amid a renewed election year focus by President Trump on immigration issues. This, according to the Associated Press, which cites a half dozen people familiar with the deliberations. 2 of the people said a document circulating in the White House outlines the plans, but the countries that would be affected were blacked out. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
In-depth hear every play of the NFL playoffs live with the NFL on TuneIn Premium. The divisional round kicks off Saturday at 4:35 p.m. Eastern when the Vikings travel across country to take on the 49ers in an NFC showdown in Santa Clara. The action continues at 8:15 as the Ravens host the Tennessee Titans in Baltimore. On Sunday, listen live beginning at 3:05 Eastern as the Texans and Chiefs square off in Kansas City, followed by the Seahawks and Packers at 6:40 in Green Bay. The excitement of the NFL playoffs is on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, has Silicon Valley changed since all the revelations about the world's social media companies?
I think people are really reluctant to relinquish this narrative of being underdogs, of being innovators, of just trying to experiment and make the world better.
Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and tune in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
Pointer by Anthony Davis. That's good!
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss. Two of the top teams in the Western Conference go head-to-head. This Sunday, the Clippers are at the Nuggets. Tip-off is at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Three ball on the way. He got it to go! Three from the angle. Got it!
Search NBA to follow your favorite NBA team today.
Cutting for the net. Scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Language experts and uses the spaced repetition method. In just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Developing after the Bell story, we are learning from a regulatory filing. Boeing's former CEO Dennis Muhlenberg will not be getting severance and must forfeit stock awards worth tens of millions of dollars after his botched handling of two deadly plane crashes ended his decades-long career at the company. He will also not be getting a bonus for 2019. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all retreating on this Friday. Turned out to be an up week, but it was a down day. First full trading week of 2019, with the S&P falling 9 points today, down 0.3%. The Dow average down 133 points, down 0.5. NASDAQ down 24 points, a drop there of 0.3%. 10-year up 10/32 at yield 1.81%. Gold up 0.7%, 15.62 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.6%, 59.19 a barrel. Recapping, stocks lower. S&P down 9, down 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. It is brought to you by Portfolio Analysts, powered by Interactive Brokers. Savvy investors use Portfolio Analysts to create a consolidated view of their finances and check the health of their complete financial portfolio. Sign up for free at portfolioanalyst.com. This is Bloomberg Radio.
So this is the perfect complement to a story we've been talking about a lot this week. It's about the big world of money management, the very big world of money management, the responsibility that goes along with the massive holdings that some of the biggest investors have. So back with us is Annie Massa, investing reporter for Bloomberg. She is our MVP this week for sure. And alongside her is Emily Chasen, sustainability editor for Bloomberg. And the story that we want to talk about is trending very high on the terminal. BlackRock joins the $41 trillion investor climate campaign. So I want to start with you, Emily. Give us the context for this, because investors, climate, it's really becoming kind of a thing. You've been on this story for a long time, but it feels like we're at an interesting moment here.
Yeah, investors are very concerned about companies' preparedness for climate change. You're seeing the fires in Australia. You're seeing floods everywhere. They want to know whether companies can actually handle this. So this Climate Action 100 plus group that BlackRock joined just recently, the Climate Action 100 group that BlackRock joined just recently, they have organized about a couple of years ago, and they have figured out that the 100 largest emitters, and they really want companies to start addressing their emissions so that they can fight climate change.
I didn't mean to throw you. We just wanted you to come closer to the mic.
Oh, okay.
Trying to do it subtly because we know everybody on YouTube can watch. And so anyway, but we just want to hear everything you have to say. I have to say, I love this story, and I really do hope, the big investment houses are continuing to step up and make a difference. But I do wonder, Annie, whether it's a lot of greenwashing and whether people are just saying what folks want to hear.
Cynical,
no, I don't mean to be cynical, but I think that, when we look, we talk about ESG a lot, and there's no really standardization when it comes to ESG. So you don't necessarily know what you're getting when you're getting maybe into an ESG fund. So tell us, BlackRock specifically, are they doing something that's going to change the needle when it comes to things like climate change?
It does make a big splash to see BlackRock joining for sure. They were one of the biggest glaring omissions from this list of investors. And you still have Vanguard and other huge global asset managers who aren't on the list yet. Now, what some nonprofits and activists have said that's been critical of BlackRock as they join this group is that their proxy voting hasn't always been in line with climate-related proposals. So that will be something to watch as they make a bigger move into climate change and being really out front and public about their stance on it. But it's something that they've drawn a bit of criticism for in the wake of this announcement.
So, Emily, come on back in here, because I do wonder, is this group effort having an effect on people's behavior?
It's a lot of assets right now under its members.
And a lot of big names.
Like more than $41 trillion, right? I mean, that's a big number.
Yeah, and it was just $32 trillion. I mean, BlackRock added about $7 trillion to this group. So that is a huge number. And these, they're not really bullies, but they are kind of saying, hey, you are a big emitter. You have a problem. You are contributing to climate change, and you need to fix it. So they've actually pushed like Royal Dutch Shell and Glencore to make changes successfully in the past few years. So it's been very effective. And BlackRock was kind of a thorn in their side because BlackRock was not voting with them. And sometimes they thought, we have $32 trillion. We're going to get close to the support we need, but they wouldn't get over without BlackRock. So it actually makes a big difference to have them there.
I think what's interesting is that the conversation has changed, and maybe it's because, when there's money involved, and if you're going to lose more money because your exposure to climate change, all of a sudden everybody wakes up.
Yeah, it's a big shift in thinking, and I think that seeing asset managers step in, you're really seeing a push for them to pressure the companies, because there's only so much that individuals can do to pressure companies, but the actual holders of those public companies and those biggest emitters of greenhouse gases are also going to be under an extreme amount of pressure from their investors.
All right, so Emily, put this in the context. You look across the entire sustainability world. We're obviously talking about a very specific effort here. Help us understand it in the broader context of similar efforts to actually, as we've been talking about, sort of change behavior. What's working out there?
Yeah, this is actually the biggest, probably most effective group yet, the Climate Action 100 Plus. And you can see BlackRock want to be part of it because they really like to be part of collective action when it is effective. It's not just disclosure either. They actually want these companies to take action. So they're saying you've got to recognize your role in the climate crisis and you have to have a plan.
All right. So, Annie, question to you. Stitch this together for us with your excellent cover story. Provocative image, it's safe to say, on the cover of Business Week this week. All about the big three. We're talking about BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. Their collective power here. How does this fit into the thesis of these guys have a lot of power and we're not quite sure what they're doing with it?
That's right. So what we wrote about in Business Week this week was the idea that BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, the largest global asset managers and largest providers of index funds globally, are growing their voting power for all these companies that they own. And the way that it ties into this Climate Action 100 Plus movement is it's all about ownership, and it's all about how these asset managers are voting on shareholder proposals at companies and what they're pressuring the companies to do or not do. So climate change has been a big piece in that.
But I do wonder, you've got probably a fair amount of names in indexes and index funds that have some problems when it comes to their impact on the environment. Now, what would it take for a company like this to say, well, we're going to get out of the index fund business?
This is part of the thorny issue. What BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard have often pointed to is we offer funds, we offer all kinds of funds. They're tied to indexes. We don't make the indexes in most cases. So that's the question of accountability.
All right.
Exactly.
Thank you.
It's tricky.
Both. So much. It is tricky, but luckily we have you guys to help us figure out. Annie Massa, investing reporter for Bloomberg, co-author of the cover story in Bloomberg Business Week this week, and Emily Chasen, sustainability editor, looking after all things sustainability. It is the story of our time in many ways. Much more to come on that front here at Bloomberg. Stay tuned. I do just want to bring you an update. Boeing, just a little more detail about former CEO Dennis Muhlenberg not getting severance and notably must forfeit stock awards worth tens of millions of dollars. This, of course, coming after his botched handling of 2 deadly plane crashes that ended his decades-long career at the company. So this is something, and Carol, you said this in the break.
Gave up at least $44 million in stock is a number, right?
Yeah.
That I'm seeing, too, right?
Someone's going to be writing a column about the impact of this and the effect it may have, the precedent it may set for CEOs leaving in the future.
Yeah, you do wonder, okay, maybe times are changing. So we'll continue to track that one. Hey, coming up, another story that caught our attention about the private equity binge that's bringing new life to wealth advisors. We love that. And then we're going to talk with the CEO of a retailer. We're talking about Casey's General Stores. They did well last year. We're going to talk to them a little bit about what they're doing.
That's all ahead. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg. Imagine yourself in an unspoiled